So today we're going to be talking about a Becky Hammon take on why she doesn't believe there are any female coaches in the NBA. And because obviously we saw Dawn Staley a couple of days ago, she basically as good as said, "Oh, there will never be there will never be a coach after her experience with the Knicks, and there will never be a female coach." And I think Becky Hammon's take was a lot better, a lot more accurate, and I actually think Becky Hammon is on the money with this. I genuinely do think that she is on the money with this take. And it's like you look at a lot of people's takes and it's like, oh, the league isn't ready. Teams aren't ready to be coached by a woman. It's like, I actually don't think that's the case. I don't even think that's close to being the case. I think if we're being completely honest here, it's nothing to do with that. It's simply a case of not even the players not wanting to do it. The owners don't want to take the risk. Or the GMs don't want to take the risk. And basically, Becky Hammon's point was that the person who hires the first female head coach, their job is on the line because of that. Like, if you hire a coach and they flame out, you might not lose your job. But if you are the risk taker and you're the person who hires the first female coach and it flames out, you've lost your job. If you are the first female head coach in the NBA and it doesn't work out, there may never be another female coach again. It kind of reminds me of like what people used to say about drafting Europeans prior to like Dirk Nowitzki, or even bringing over Europeans. Where, oh, they're not good enough. There's better Americans than these players, and then there were teams that had to take the risk, and obviously, it's years later. It's years and years later, and obviously, people's opinions of the sport of basketball are different now. No one cares about where you're from; they'll just take who the best player is, and it's going to take a GM deciding to make the hire. Like, I stand by this. If Becky Hammon had stuck with Pop up till this year, I think Becky Hammon would currently be the San Antonio Spurs coach. Like, it would take a team to have a coach in as prominent a role as Becky Hammon, and a bunch of players that already respected that coach like it was nothing. Like, if Becky was there with the Spurs the whole way, I still think that she would have probably been the head coach by now. Or not even head coach by now. I think she would have been the coach who've taken over from Pop. Because we can talk about this. I don't think anyone doubts Becky Hammon's ability to coach sport of basketball. And I don't think anyone doubts Becky Hammon's ability to coach at the NBA level. I think most people will agree Becky Hammon is more than capable of coaching an NBA team. It's just, which GM wants to be the GM that hires the first female coach? Because you do go and lose your job. Like, if a team hires Becky Hammon, that's not the Spurs. If the Spurs hire Becky Hammon, they're fine. They're fine. Like, the GM's not going to lose their job because of her history with the Spurs. But if any team not named the San Antonio Spurs hires Becky Hammon, and she flames out, that's it. It's done. If the Knicks hired Dawn Staley, which they interviewed her, but if the Knicks hired Dawn Staley, and it didn't work, everyone involved in that team is fired. Like, half the backroom staff's going to be fired if it just doesn't work out. And I do think genuinely that no GM wants to take the risk. I think the money's too big. I think to risk losing a job where you're making millions of dollars a year, I don't think a GM is going to take that risk, honestly, anytime soon. Unless, like, Rick Carlisle's going nowhere. But you've obviously got Jenny Bosek, who's on the bench at the NBA level. But she's likely... I'm shocked that she wasn't the Indiana Fever coach. Like, I'm legitimately shocked that she wasn't named as the Fever coach. But she's somebody that is there with the Pacers. She's on the bench. And I think we'll see more. We'll have to see more of that, because I don't think a female head coach in the NBA is going to get a job unless they come through like a Becky Hammon. Like, I think it would have to be a case where they work their way up from the bottom. They work their way up from the bottom on the team, become one of the lead assistant coaches. Then the head coach gets fired, or the head coach gets fired. The head coach leaves. Because I think if the head coach gets fired, it's rare that if they get fired for like basketball reasons, it's rare that you're going to employ an assistant coach. Well, not rare, like it's rare-ish. But then, well, an inexperienced assistant coach. But then at least someone's there. If the coach walks away, you can be ready to step in. Or heck, you know what? Like, a team could literally go and they start the season like 2-15 or something. Let's just say hypothetically, it's not going to happen with the Pacers, because look, the Pacers are legitimately a good team, and Rick Carlisle is an exceptional coach. But let's just say a team had a bad head coach, and they had a female assistant coach, and they went like 2-15 to start the season, and they were going to fire their head coach anyway, and they just said, screw it. Screw it. Like, we're either one of two things happens. Either she's going to be our head coach, either we tank, or we make history. Two, if it works out, great, cool, we've got a new head coach. If it doesn't work out, cool, we've tanked. Like, it would genuinely have to be one of those scenarios. But I think it's a matter of when, not if. And the when could be 20 years from now. If you had said 10 years ago, would it have happened already? Especially with the prominent role that Becky Hammond was playing in the Spurs. I think everybody would have said yes. Like, she immediately went to the San Antonio Spurs coaching team, and she was 7 years at the Spurs. I think a lot of people thought Becky Hammond was going to be Pop's replacement. And if you look like Becky Hammond at the WNBA level, just the way that she can coach, her knowledge of the game, like, there's no question about it that Becky Hammond is a good enough coach at the NBA level. There's absolutely no question about that. But it's just who wants to take the risk, and is the risk worth it for these coaches? Because again, do these coaches want the pressure of being that? Staley, obviously, yeah. I think Becky Hammond would be, yeah. But do you want to be the pressure of being the first female head coach? Because you know if you do a bad job, it may never happen again. So I don't know if we're going to see it being a consistent thing, but I do think it's a matter of when, not if, we see a WNBA head coach. But the reason why it hasn't happened so far, I think Becky Hammon's pretty on the money. Anyway, I'll see you guys.